I knew we were in serious trouble the moment I'd opened my eyes. What was it? Mike asked, his eyes still closed, his hands on the rope between us. The little girl clung to his back, tied in place. She didn't seem to have any idea that we were in danger. We're trapped, I responded, studying our surroundings with a sinking heart. The back paths had anticipated our rope response and taken things a step beyond simply dumping us into an endless sky. The tree-lined path still extended away from us, but it dropped off sharply a few feet away. A thick cube sat just further than that, trees and sidewalk running up its side, across it, and down again. Paths split off from there across, floating geometric shapes barely connected at possible angles, filling the sky with mind-bending paths leading in every direction. Below, the maze seemed to stretch on in an endless jumble of shapes, stretching all the way into a fading horizon miles distant. What had once been confusing, claustrophobic paths had now become an entire endless labyrinth, a plane unto itself. I'm way too sober for this, Mike commented, his tone heavy with the first note of true despair I never heard him utter. Walking to the edge that dropped off the side of our current cube, studying the trees that stood straight out without a problem, I probed the void with my foot. As I'd suspected, instead of falling straight down, I began curving over the corner, eventually coming to a stop at a 90-degree angle to my former position. What if it just drops us, Mike called, hesitant to step into the new angle. I looked around the endless sky maze, curious. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have control that specific, with so much effort spent on all of this. But we don't have a choice anyway. The faint last notes of a massive roar echoed around us, made only more terrifying by their sheer distant origin. Had something on the horizon seen us? I thought I saw a movement on a distant upside-down pyramid, but peering into the jumble of shapes and shadows brought no answers. Moving quickly changing angles, walking around a massive sphere of a tree-lined sidewalk, and stepping onto a slowly rotating rectangle of grass. We came to a picnic table next to a 5x5 pool of water soaked with red blood. A body lay within, disturbingly normal by its clothes and lack of any horrible features. Mike kept his distance so as to not scare the little girl. I broke off a stick from a nearby tree and turned him over. He looked vaguely familiar, perhaps someone else that lived in our apartment complex. Were others stumbling into the back paths too? Excuse me. Were others stumbling into the back paths too? It didn't seem unlikely now that I thought about it. We'd angered it by continually defying it, and it made it increasingly deadly, narrowing my eyes. I looked over at my companions. How had that little girl survived in here for so long by herself? Suddenly doubting my current perspective, I checked under the picnic table and I found a letter I carved last iteration. Something seemed to move to my right. I looked across the vast, incomprehensible spaces. The light was changing slowly. The change was more clear on rotating headrooms. Looking up, I realized the sun was still up there somewhere, moving as normal. Even though I wondered about the ever-present rain in the maze. The first drops began to fall, one hitting my cheek with a forceful splatter. "What do we do?" Mike asked. "I don't see any nearby gaps. Ours could be miles away, and how will we ever find it?" "It's a long shot," I thought out loud. "Well, we broke a hole in our gap the last time we were here. If that's still here, once the water reaches a certain height, it should start flowing that way, right?" A small light of hope entered my eyes. "Holy crap! I think you're right. It'll be tough to notice with all this." He indicated the insane geometry of the twisted world around us. "But it might work. As long as we don't head back to the last world by accident," I said with a shrug. Broke a hole into the gap too. I probably shouldn't have said that. He seemed worried again. Leading the way as the light scattered drops became a full drizzle, I picked what seemed like the most confusing direction and headed that way, assuming the maze would try to lead us far away from our exit by putting easy misdirections in our way. I opted to remain roped together in case of any angle simply drop B, as Mike had feared. Curving up around a large parabolic structure, we came to a position directly above our previous spot. Looking straight up, we could see the bloody pool upside down above us. Narrowing my eyes, I thought I saw a movement again, shaking my head. I dismissed it until I looked up again. This time, the ravaged body we turned over was gone, leaving the pool splashing with its departure. Staring at the trees all around the pool, I tried to figure out where it went, but the foliage was too thick. Mike noticed too, and without another word, we began hurrying away. The increasing pattern of the rain became enormously loud, splattering against the leaves in every direction in the vast, endless maze. No matter where we went, it was always coming down at us, and we could see the drops traveling sideways and up and down in the distance. "There!" Mike shouted, pointing at a gigantic cylinder behind and above us. Bloody handprints trailed the slowly spinning surface. Studying the rain flows in the air, I realized we could evade the anticipated animated corpse with a little shortcut. "Here," I said, climbing up a specific tree. Mike was forced to follow by the short length of the rope between us, and we both moved up alongside a strange stucco wall. A weird and growing sound echoing from the corner of our current cube. I hit the changing rain flow as the corpse thing rounded the corner, crawling at impossible speed toward our tree. Feeling my hair lifting straight up, blood rushing to my head, I knew my instinct had been right. Leaping straight up, I suddenly turned upside down and hung painfully from the rope tied around my waist. Looking down, I saw another tree below my feet. Reaching out, I gripped it with the flats of my shoes, pulling Mike up or down, as it were. He spun in the air but managed to land lightly in the branches with my help, the little girl on his back laughing. Above, the mauled corpse hung from the tree, upside down a few feet away. Its legs were above us, the mauled corpse hung from the tree, upside down a few feet away. Its legs mere stubs of cracked bone. It lacked the ability to jump. Staring at us with hollow eyes, it began descending its tree, moving up away from us, intent on crawling down another path. "Go!" I shouted, climbing down as fast as I could without placing my hands on the branches I stepped on, with Mike just behind me doing the same. The surging rain had made the climb treacherous, and I deemed another such stunt impossible. It would be all far running from here. As we hit the ground and took off the side of a mountainous pyramid, the incredible roar sounded again, shaking the very bricks beneath our shoes. We crested the pyramid, our view opening up on a mighty valley of open space above and below, a sky arena stretching to the very horizon, framed by a universe of jumbled polyhedrons premated by incongruous blasting rains. We froze in place from sheer and awe and terror. A thing of horrible beauty approached through the sky, passing through wide swaths of sunlight, rain, and shadow, moving on its own volition, bearing no visible manner of propulsion. It simply moved in all shapes and directions, writhing and rotting vitally, and it had most definitely seen us. Running felt pointless, but we did it anyway, trying to duck deeper into the maze. Animal panic took over, leading us deeper into the jumble. A sense of sight passed over us several times, a vast awareness searching for us in the darkening underbelly of the labyrinth. I closed my eyes against the overwhelming feeling each time, but kept running, knowing the rope would keep Mike from getting lost. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered. The massive unholy thing tore away the hedrons above us, simply consuming them. The shadows around us lessened as we ran, until the horrible awareness stopped in place. It had found us. Paralyzed, we turned and looked up. Shivering eddies seemed to tug at the edges of my very consciousness. Vaporous memories and emotions leaving through the corners of my eyes, grasping at them. I tried to keep them, tried to hold on to those scant, precious moments from my childhood. But they shifted through my fingers. Like so much sand, drawing further vitally along behind them. Screaming, I used up all of my strength to just closed my eyes. I bent over and then fell to my hands and knees, something dripping along my face. I felt gravity shift in the air move as a gargantuan presence moved towards us. A vile limb reaching out, perhaps to destroy us, perhaps to regard us, perhaps to consume us. Eyes still closed tightly, I tugged my shoelaces, my fingers straining at the wet material. Finally, I got one shoe off. Feeling the surging air reach a peak as the thing began to close around us, I threw my shoe in the air as hard as I could, laughing like a maniac. You shouldn't have shown yourself. All destructive motion ceased. Opening my blood-dripping eyes, I looked first to Mike, who sat curled in his knees with his hands over his face. The little girl waved at me. Oblivious, narrowing my eyes, I turned my attention up, where the monstrous thing regarded me with one infinite black void of what I presumed to be an eye. I could feel it massaging the meat inside of my head, pulling out what we had done. It didn't matter, nothing mattered, it was too late. The shifting sun finally reached us, illuminating our strategy. Ethereal blue phosphorescence glowed from the bottoms of our shoes, and everything we had stepped on throughout the maze, a small glitter even radiated from a half shoe print on the possible monstrous limb still hovering above us. I'm gonna eat you. I'm gonna eat you, I shouted, laughing and cavorting around with wild eyes. I'm gonna eat everything here. Glora, Glora. For the first time, the entity behind the back paths felt something other than hunger. I could feel it rejecting my assertion, its void eye regarding the incredible size of its domain. Nope, I yelled, grinning, thinking of the letter I carved into the picnic table. Then seen on all the rest. I think this place isn't nearly as big as it looks. Giving another movement for a self-indulgent whirl in maniacal laughter, I spread my arms wide. Let us go, and I'll tell you how to cure it. We sat at a tense, unholy impasse, regarding the widening blue glow on its limb. I pointed, spreading. It's spreading. Can you feel it? What's it feel like? Does it feel like dying? Or does it feel like nothing at all? Absolute void encroaching on our senses. Next to me, Mike watched with horror, more afraid of me than the entity hovering above us. A third and final massive roar blasted us with fetid, ghastly odors. The sound of a grating brick erupted behind us, and the blue wire weed lane last iteration shimmered into view under our feet. Of course, I mused out loud. Mostly illusion. We kicked off our shoes, leaving the eerie blue corruption in the entity's pocket dimension, where the consumption would be contained safely. Walking through the gap in bare socks, We emerged into a carport parking lot. A neighbor stood in the distance, smoking in just a beater and boxers. "Well, we're definitely home," Mike said with a gulp. "Yes," I turned, regarding the back paths. I could still feel the entity's presence, awaiting the promised cure. I wonder how long would it take to realize no cure was coming. What did it really look like? Did it have skin that would slough off before it died, leaving it to waste away in agony? I hoped so. Mike began stepping away nervously. "I'm just gonna take her home. I'll do it, trust me." He untied his ropes and let her down, pushing her over to me. She leaped up into my arms without a care. I began walking away, a deeply satisfying sense of victory filling me. The screams of little girls playing in the carport emanated from down the lot. Looking over, I saw the missing girl, watched over worriedly by her mother as she played. So they found her after all. Through moral means, I smiled at the little girl I was holding. It hadn't seen the real little girl playing in the distance yet, but the jig was about to be up. I wondered with excitement how it would try to defend itself. Would it be as much as fun as the back paths had been? "Where are you?" Mike called after me, his tone quavering. "Don't worry about it," I called back, walking away. It was rare that I left witnesses alive, but he had been a top-notch partner. It wouldn't have felt right to destroy him. No. Right at that moment, I was only looking forward to taking the imposter creature into the apartment. I had been temporarily making use of, and then seeing how well it might fight back. 2 kills in one day? What a week. My grin widened as I departed. I'm nobody. Just remember me as a bad trip you had once. Well, this was a very long creepypasta, and I kind of got a bit confused about what it was kind of all about, but I know it's probably just trying to find out where you need to find the exit in like some sort of dimension. I don't even know what the origin of the story was mainly. Maybe there was like a prequel or something. I don't know. But anyways, if you have anything to say, please feel free to comment down below. You can also feel free to rate and favorite this video. You can look me up on Facebook and subscribe to my channel. Anyways, this is Marshall Dion signing off for now.